Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're talking about the seamless traveler journey. Now, what does that mean? In principle, it is very simple. It is about reducing friction, reducing touch point, and reducing the actions a traveler has to take on their trip. In practice, this can be very difficult, especially in an industry that is as fragmented and complicated as travel. One key part of the travel experience is the payment process. Credit card payments, virtual payments make it much easier and convenient for travelers. Mastercard recently did a study on the payment landscape in the Western Balkans, and Ivan is going to give us an insight on the findings. Ivan.
If you allow me, I will show you the results of a study that we recently accomplished in Bosnia Herzegovina. Just a couple of months ago it was published. The study title was How to Close the Acceptance Gap in Bosnia, because we, in our terminologies, we call it card acceptance in general. So that's the reason why the study was dominantly focused on these aspects. Here I'm going to show you just a couple of slides as a kind of food for thoughts for the coming discussion. I show you a lot of numbers, by the way, and try to provide you an interpretation as well, and further, let's say, comments to this one. If you look at from your perspective, the left-hand side, you can see here the regional countries. Again, we try to not show you examples from Scandinavia, for example, which is a fully cashless society there by now, but try to focus on the region, Southern Eastern Europe and Eastern Europe and Central Europe overall. You can see, and let me call your attention to the issued cards per adult, which is far the lowest in Bosnia at the moment. Because in my opinion, a tourist experience cannot be better than the experience of a local citizen. So if a local citizen does not have this particular service offered to use the card, then how could a tourist use the card? It's not differentiated in shops and stores that tourists, foreigners can pay by card, but local citizens cannot. So the overall level of maturity in digital and payment industry is very important to understand how it looks like today. This shows you that at this point of time, in terms of issued cards, number of issued cards, Bosnia is far, far below even the regional averages. And also, if you look at the third column there, which is the POS density per 1,000 people, this shows an even worse picture. Our studies show that currently there are roughly 20,000 POS terminals, card acceptance terminals in Bosnia. And just to be comparable to the regional averages, additional at least 20,000, maybe even 40,000 terminals should be installed. Certainly it's a huge effort. It's a lot of costs as well. But we believe that there can be a rational and business case behind it. An additional point that I wanted to show you on the right-hand side, again, showing at your numbers, even if a citizen has a card in Bosnia, unfortunately, the way how they use it is dominantly focused on cash withdrawal from ATMs. It differs very significantly from the European typical card user behavior, but it still differs from the local behaviors in these countries. What is the root cause? One of the root causes is very simple. If you look at the adult population, the banked population in Bosnia represents not more than roughly 60%. If you look at some extreme developed countries like Scandinavian countries, again, it's very close to 100% there. Here in this region, I think that Romania is the only one that is in the same range as Bosnia at the moment. So if a client does not even have, a citizen doesn't even have a bank account, and certainly that person does not use cards, and fully 100% cash user overall, we can say. In this graph, again, you can see the already mentioned two dimensions, so number of cards per adult, and also the number of POS terminals, card acceptance terminals. But there is also one more dimension that I illustrated here, and this is the size of the bubble. The size of the bubble represents a card user behavior, meaning how many times, how frequently the user, card holder, uses the card in a given time period. And you can see that this is also one of the smallest circles in this benchmark, meaning that it's not enough that several citizens do not have a card, but even if a citizen has a card, then does not really use the card, which is very rarely, most probably just for ATM withdrawal, cash withdrawal. What happened in other countries? Is it specific to what you've never seen before? The answer is no. We have seen similar examples in Mastercard, and we supported several countries to change this attitude. I took here just 4 examples from this region: Poland, Hungary, also Serbia and Greece, where within a couple of years' time, significant changes have been achieved. Thousands or 10,000s of POS terminals were installed, and there were 4, let's say, common factors of these successes. One, the regulatory. We call it fiscalization, so the regulatory part, how this was managed by the regulation. The second was certainly the education of the citizens and cardholders. The third one, subsidies. Investing into these POS terminals, be it either physical POS terminal or card not present kind of card acceptance in e-commerce. Plus, new products were developed, dominantly by the banking sector, of course, but it requires certainly cooperation and a joint plan, a kind of action plan from all stakeholders to make sure that this could have been a success factor. But again, within a couple of years' time, very significant change was achieved. We also calculated when we looked at the total missing POS terminals that roughly 20,000 was missing, as mentioned earlier. We looked at the sectors, the industries, and you can see there the top 11 industries, and more than 60% of it is related to overall tourism. You can see from the top ranked like eating places, bars, grocery stores, transportation, and so on and so on. More than 14,000 POS terminals are missing or could be installed immediately in these industries just to meet the regional Southern Eastern European market averages. I'm not even talking about the Western European averages. We also created in this study a kind of localized plan, what we suggest based on our global and especially regional experience, what the different stakeholders could and should do. We defined it certainly for the public sector, issuers and acquirers. We differentiate based on our terminologies, but certainly from your perspective, these are both banks. So what different banks could do, and also how we, as not the banking sector participant, but we as other stakeholders, what we could focus on. We do believe, by the way, that the only one differentiation compared to Greece, Hungary, and Poland that I mentioned earlier is that here I think the banking products already do exist. So the missing element is the remaining 3 points, like regulation, like education, and we invest a lot into that as well. And also the last one, to put the funds on the table, meaning creating a business case for different stakeholders, how they could all benefit from a cashless society. And my closing statement is that it's first of all, it's not rocket science. It's not there, but there's no silver bullet either. It requires a cooperation of several stakeholders, all stakeholders in this value chain, and taking into consideration the regional and the global best practices as well. That was all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. I think this is a really great place to start because payments are such a fundamental part of the consumer experience. But of course, they're not the only element. Consumers today basically have endless choice, and companies are competing for their attention and their money. Consumers expect easy access, a smooth experience across all channels wherever they are. A recent study by Salesforce found that 84% of consumers say that the experience that a company delivers is as important as the products and services. So the experience matters, whether we're talking about online shopping or travel. The Salesforce study also found that almost 3/4 of consumers say that what the experience they have with one brand impacts what they expect from another brand. So if it's easy to buy an outfit online, they expect it to be similarly easy to book a trip. Maybe it's unfair because travel is very different. It's a very fragmented and complicated industry, and delivering a journey is a complicated endeavor. But in the end, that's what the consumer wants. And if, as an industry, we want to be successful, as a destination, we want to be successful, this is what we need to deliver. So the consumer is at the core of everything. So let's start with that. Maggie,
Yes.
at Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we had a great session yesterday about the high-value consumer.
Yes.
And you are representing some really boutique hotels, many off the beaten path, offering unique experiences. So you are definitely one of the players that can reach these consumers. Can you give us a little bit of color on what these consumers expect, how the expectations are evolving, and how this impacts their experience?
Sure. Thank you for having me here today. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith as a brand has always been very proud of our content. So we started as a book publishing company, and we were there to inspire. It was to get people to think differently about hotels and properties and travel in general. So we started with inspiration, we started with unique destinations, unique properties, and grew it from there. So yes, we have lots of inspirational, wonderful content and unique hotels, but that ends up being complex because those unique hotels all need different things from Mr. and Mrs. Smith as a representative of their properties. So those customers that come to us expect to be able to book and confirm those hotels all in the same way. So the journey to getting them to come to the website is actually easy in a way from a content point of view, but then marrying up every different type of properties, rates, availability, processes on their end into a single process on our end to provide to the end consumer is difficult. But we use technology to help us do that. And the seamless element is making sure the customer doesn't even really realize that we're doing all of that hard work in the background to make it easy for them to make a reservation, pay for a reservation, and actually then go on that journey without even really having to think about it.
Well, I suppose, it goes beyond just the booking process and then starting the journey. In the end, and this is an example of the fragmentation of the travel industry,
Yes.
You sell the product, but in the end, you're not the ones to deliver it.
Correct.
That's your hotels. So how do you work with those properties in the diverse places across the world to ensure that they deliver the right experience, that they don't overpromise, that they actually provide what your consumers want? Because in the end, if they come back, they're going to say, I booked with Mr. and Mrs. Smith and it was terrible.
Right. So hopefully not. But you're completely right that we do not own that entire process, and that is difficult. I would say simply it's about technology. So we work with lots of different partners, hotel partners, technology partners, not only to serve up the basics, rates, availability, but also allow customers to pay. Some of our hotels don't take credit cards, and that's not a problem because we take credit cards. So we're able to help those properties service their customers by being the payment provider. We also have a very skilled team who works with the properties to advise them on how best to service the bookings, provide the best customer service once the customer gets to the property, and that's part of our entire relationship with the hotel. Some of our best products are our relationships with the properties, and we really do get to know them, get to focus on what their goal is in servicing their customers, so that we can then actually make sure our customers are aware of what to expect when getting to the properties, however different they may be.
So do you take a holistic view of the entire customer journey from inspiration to post-trip engagement?
We do have post-trip engagement. I mean, that's why you want customers to come back, right? You want to engage their experience and understand how each of their experiences with our individual hotels can be, copied or passed on, learned from for other properties. So we do a lot of focus groups. We do user testing with our website as well to keep the customers who have been on a stay with us engaged in our brand, in the hotels we represent, and ensuring that they have actually had a nice time and have been able to pay for the hotel in the way that they want. And so it's a lot of moving parts, but it does mean that we try and at least capture from the consumer's point of view the whole journey, mainly through feedback and hopefully booking again.
Thank you, Maggie. I think that's also really important for AXA. So your motto is the customer is at the heart of all we do. And you take a very meticulous and data-driven approach when you look at the customer journey. You look at each touch point as far as understand. You try to understand how your customers engage with your employees, with your technology, and you try to optimize. Could you give us a little bit color on that, Alastair, and what are the challenges, what benefits do you see, and how does it improve the experience for your customers?
Yes, happy to. So when it comes down to travel insurance, I'm speaking on behalf of the industry, not just AXA here, there are two customer journeys. The first one is the acquisition of the insurance, and we have to make sure that that's accessible to all of our customer demographic. If I cast my mind back 10 years, the customers that typically bought travel insurance were the older generation, the 50 plus. They want a more considered purchase journey. They want to be able to engage with the insurer. They want to ensure that they've got the right level of protection, typically when it comes to things like pre-existing medical conditions, for example. Nowadays, we see a shift in consumer behavior, partly born by the fact that we're seeing a shift in demographics. So next year, over 50% of AXA's customers will be Gen Z and millennials. And that brings with them a different need, a different demand. They want seamless, quick access to products and services. And so we need to use technology, we need to use AI to really understand that customer, the type of cover that they're going to want, and we need to make it available to them in the way that they want to buy. 41% of Gen Z and millennials have used split payment purchases, 3-month payment for their clothes or whatever they're buying. The likes of Klarna, for example, are strong in that sector, and they want to use those technologies across all of their purchase journey. So we need to make sure that we're accessible. The second journey, of course, is the one should you need to make a claim, and that's where we can really use AI to help us and to speed things up. So when we look at the high volume, low value insurance claims, so typically lost baggage, cancellation, for example, that's where we can really leverage the benefits of technology to make that a really quick journey, painless, super easy for the consumer to be able to get their claim back and to get their payment received. But within AXA, we have an ethos, which is digital where possible, but human when it matters. And then if we look at our more complex medical claims, for example, that's when we really need to step in and use our agent base and the human side of what we do to ensure that journey is as pain-free as possible. When you've got a repatriation, a medical emergency, it's a sensitive issue, and that's when the customer needs to have somebody on the end of the phone that they can speak to and that they can really engage with. So we balance that out between using technology to expedite the simple claims, freeing up the agents that we've got to really focus on where we can deliver the maximum value to the customer.
So really we're talking not about the customer journey, but rather the right journey for different customers. And I know, people are different. Even, if I travel to a conference, I'm a completely different persona than if I travel on the weekend for leisure. So you segment your customers and you look at their behavior and their expectations, and you try to customize and personalize the experience for their needs.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we're seeing in terms of consumer behavior, a shift towards a demand for personalisation, and Maggie touched on that in terms of the company there that offers that unique experience. With this growing demographic of Gen Z and millennials, there's two aspects. One, they want to have unique experiences. 45% of them have bought a holiday based on what they've seen on Instagram, for example. And so they want that unique stay. They want that off-the-beaten-track experience. So we need to make sure that we have the right products and services to be able to deliver that and to personalize that. But if you look at that demographic, and I think you mentioned it, Peter, in terms of your intro, but they are used to having personalized experiences in all of their aspects of their life. So when they go on Amazon, they're given up content on Amazon that is linked to their buying cycle, their buying profiles. They go on Instagram, they're getting personalized algorithms that generate content that consumer wants. And so they demand that across all of their services, their online interactions. And so we absolutely have to make sure that we can understand their needs and try and offer them up that personalized experience. So we're catering and we're, more importantly, we're protecting them for their specific type of travel that they're going through, rather than trying to push them into a one-size-fits-all, which I think as an industry is probably where we were 10 years ago and where we need to move from to match that demographic.
I think, the four of us here on the stage, we represent fairly mature, large companies with resources, expertise. So how do you think this translates to a fragmented industry like travel and smaller businesses? What role can they play when it comes to, designing these experiences and delivering them?
Well, speaking on behalf of the insurance sector alone, it's a great space for the smaller insurers to enter the marketplace because they tend to be typically more agile. They don't tend to have the legacy technology systems that a big insurer like AXA or any of the other large players will have. And actually that helps keep the industry sharp. It helps bring a level of competition in terms of how they're interacting with the consumer, which is great for the customer experience, because it means that we are accelerating that pace of change and ensuring that we're keeping up with what the consumer demands. So actually, there's a great opportunity for the smaller entrants within the insurance sector to really kind of lead the field in terms of what they're delivering, particularly when it comes to things like the purchase journey. We're in insurance, and so the idea is that we protect people if they need it, but nobody wants to have to claim on their insurance when they're traveling because it means something's gone wrong. So in that aspect, that's where those smaller insurers can really add some value to the marketplace in terms of keeping the larger insurers on their toes when it comes to the right customer journeys and interacting in the seamless way possible.
Thank you. Ivan, we started out with talking about payments. Let's maybe return quickly about that. You ended your presentation saying, okay, there's no silver bullet, but there are best practices. Can you elaborate a little bit on what it means? So, what gaps need to be filled to make sure that at least the payment side of a seamless experience is improved over time here in the region?
Well, in our experience, achieving a kind of quantum leap is not as difficult as you might perceive. It's a little bit more complex than an average type of activity, but overall it's not complicated. In several countries, it has already been done. We were part of the equation. Several times we prepared the business case, the kind of business logic for each stakeholder, starting first with the government, of course, or how the tax income from the government perspective may look like, how the grey economy could be cleared with this type of activities, how the end-to-end money flow, cash flow, money flow, yeah, in this case, because we are talking about cash overall, can be optimized. This is a win-win situation for all stakeholders at the end of the day, but they cannot really imagine at the beginning how this can be, how the mathematics could be done overall, and how it can be profitable and how they could benefit from that. But again, based on our experience, within a couple of years' time, I'm talking about not 10 years, but rather 2-3 years' time, a kind of quantum leap and magic can happen. And as it happened in several countries, by installing 10,000s of POS terminals and changing the regulation. But again, end-to-end thinking is very important, because if you have just one element of the let's say cash chain or money flow, which remains still cash-oriented, then the entire motivation is lost. I'll give you an example. If small companies, suppliers, or what is absolutely a cost driver for them, want him or her to pay in cash, then why would that person or company need any kind of amount and liquidity on their current account? So if the end-to-end chain is converted to digital and cashless, then it's not so big issue and rocket science to educate also the citizens to use their cards overall, and it will have an impact certainly on the tourists' experience overall in the country.
Can you speak a little bit about what Alastair mentioned about different generations, millennials, Generation Z, and how they differ in terms of how they approach payments and what their expectations on this sector is?
Well, I can tell you, of course, that the younger generations are much more digital savvy, and they know much more how to use mobile phones and how to use cards and so on. We do have several campaigns, also one campaign in cooperation with one bank in Bosnia, where, for example, for typically the pensioner segment, for example, they love visiting branches and withdrawing their pension every month after they receive it. So they stand in queues and wait maybe even half an hour to get served by the cashier. And what we did, for example, in several bank branches, is that we delegated colleagues there, especially for those days when pension is paid out. And these relatively young, typically students, on behalf of the bank and on behalf of Mastercard, showed them how to use the ATM, how to use their card, how to activate their card if they had a card, how to install the mobile bank application on their mobile phone, how to use it, and we achieved 20% decrease in the cash withdrawals on these days, and these were the high season and peak season days in the bank, overall in bank branches. So it's a part, in our opinion, it's a part of the education, how we try to support the citizens and cardholders overall. But if they start using their cards, certainly they will create demand on the acceptance part as well, because they want to use their card overall. So it becomes a regulatory question if the regulator, as it happened in other countries, that they made it mandatory for all groceries, all cash points basically, or payment points. They made it mandatory to allow clients to pay by card. So it's subject to client's decision if I want to pay by cash or by card.
So it's a combination of regulations and pressure in the market to offer these options, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Maggie, I want to talk about the hotel side of your business a little bit. So, you represent mostly, hotels that are small and medium-sized businesses, and businesses like that, also shops and restaurants, those are really the backbone of the travel industry. In your view, how can these businesses help their destination grow and reach an international and larger audience?
I'll go with the sort of theme of this whole conference. It's about partnership. It's about collaboration. So we have so many properties who are working with the local community, whether that is through they are hiring people from the local community. They are also partnering with restaurants and shops they're promoting each other. Both parties are working together. They are putting together experiences with local guides in the area, and they are we have hotels that are focused only on their community and giving back to their community. So I mean, it's a wonderful story first, and that from a consumer point of view, how amazing to be able to tell that story with your local community and area about your property and the surrounding area. But at the same time, they're all helping each other, and they're all working in such a way that benefits the community as a whole, rather than the single property or the single restaurant or the single shop.
It seems like the elephant in the room at the moment is, the advance of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Digitalization has completely changed the consumer experience, and we're at the brink of this happening again. I think we're already seeing this. Alastair, you mentioned that you're already applying AI for fraud detection, personalisation, improving your product. Can each of you maybe weigh in a little bit on that? How do you already employ artificial intelligence, generative AI, and how do you see the consumer expectations evolve of that? Obviously, you don't have a crystal ball, but from where you're sitting today, what are your thoughts? Do you want to start, Maggie?
Sure.
Yes.
I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is probably in its infancy with AI, but specifically from a payment point of view, we're using other tools to help us understand how people are paying, detect fraud, personalize what people want, what we present as a payment method to a particular guest. Based on what our current payment provider knows about that customer, plus whether or not we know them. So we are, we have enough data to understand if a customer is one we've seen before, obviously, and we are a member-based organization as well. So if you're logged in, obviously there's a lot of different ways we recognize you, but we have a long way to go when it comes to AI. I think Mr. and Mrs. Smith has often, we're such a unique product. We offer unique products to people, and so it was sort of, well, what if we employ any sort of AI practices, are we going to become less personal? Are we going to less interesting because is it going to blanket what we already offer? So there's a bit of push and pull between the technology that we know that it can give us and the unique special experience that we still want to provide to the customer. So it's a bit of a balance, trying.
Alastair, do you want to add anything? Thank you. Would you like to add anything about specifically how you employ artificial intelligence at AXA?
Yes, so the first step in terms of deploying AI was really to look at our claims processing, claims handling journey. At the same time, we know that consumer demand wants to speed up and expedite the easy claims. How can they get access to their money as quickly as possible for lost baggage or baggage delay or cancellation, for example? So, and we want to support that consumer demand. We want to make sure it's as easy as possible to make a claim. So we use AI to help with our straight-through processing. We do use it as partly from a fraud detection perspective as well, because clearly if you remove any human interaction, then you remove one level of security. So it's a balance between the two. So we use it there. But one of the other consumer behavior changes we've noticed since COVID is that now that when people are traveling, they know they want to be protected when it comes to an insurance perspective. But that generates queries. They want to understand what happens if I get sick in this country? And often many of these questions are not really related to the insurance perspective. It's just they recognize that there is risk when they travel and they want to understand what happens should something happen to them. And so we get a lot of these calls, and so we're using AI from a chat and a chatbot perspective to try and answer as many of those queries as we can do so that our agents are freed up to handle the medical emergency cases, the ones that require a little bit more information. So we're using it to try and really speed up the claims processing, the claims handling case at the moment.
Thank you. And even I assume, it's not dissimilar for Mastercard. I'm sure fraud detection, for instance, is also, a core application when you're looking at artificial intelligence.
Yes, so the banking sector is going through a tremendous revolution now, to be honest, because we have a lot of data. Mastercard had already been a kind of analytics company as well, data analytics company, because we process millions of transactions every day globally. And we have already been having an analytics team for more than 20 years by now. But AI provides an additional, let's say, factor and dimension to this. Because I'll tell you an example. If you travel to Bosnia and in your mobile application, certainly this information is captured in your mobile bank application. And we as Mastercard, we know, without knowing your name, but we know your card usage, we know what your industry preferences in your spendings are. If you travel abroad, what do you typically do? Do you go to fancy restaurants, or you prefer like a low category type of restaurants? Do you buy jewelry abroad? Do you buy some additional clothes and so on? We can make a recommendation combining these two segmentation information, or information that you are abroad, in which country we can make you a recommendation, which are those particular stores that are in your neighborhood at the moment that might fit into your purchase profile.
Thank you. So we're almost at the end of our time. Let's end with a very quick quick fire round. What do you think is the number one thing that businesses need to do to improve the customer journey, especially small businesses? Maggie?
I would say it's about doing one thing well. I think that's what Mr. and Mrs. Smith has always, we've tried other things, we've tried flights, we've tried transfers, we know we're great at hotels. So find your unique thing that you do well and find then partners to help you do the rest.
Great. Alastair?
I would take that uniqueness theme on as well. You need to be accessible and you need to offer something unique to that consumer. The changes in demand of consumer behavior now, everybody's wanting something unique, something bespoke. And that's the number one challenge. How do you turn your offering into something that feels tailored and personal to that customer?
And Ivan, you started, finish it off.
Yes, thank you very much. So basically 2 sentences or 2 bullet points. One is that I repeat myself what I said at the beginning, that the journey and experience of a tourist cannot exceed the experience of a local citizen. So we have to improve both of them in parallel. And the second point is that there is already an initiative which is called Cashless Bosnia, which is similar to the example that I've showed you at the beginning. If we continue along this path, involving all stakeholders, create the business plan together, and create the action plan as well together, and within a couple of years' time, there must be a quantum leap achieved in Bosnia as well.
Thank you very much.
Peter,
Yes.
I'm just going to interrupt you because there is a question
Sure.
from the audience, so to the panel.
Yeah, Ian Taylor from Travel Weekly in London. We keep talking about unique experiences, and I'm never quite sure what that means, because if it's really a unique experience, there's only one, and that's not much of a business model. So I'm assuming we mean a different experience, something new to the person. But if part of the experience of coming to Bosnia-Herzegovina is that you have to pay in restaurants with cash, what's wrong with that? Why homogenize the experience when it is already different?
I mean, I would answer that from a customer perspective. I mean, the experience of eating at a great restaurant doesn't mean that I have to pay by cash, personally.
No, I agree. I think it maybe in destination is different to getting to that destination. So, like I said before, there's many hotels that we work with who don't take credit cards and don't plan to. But us as their representative for bringing them business, we make our consumers' journey a little bit easier by taking that credit card on their behalf. So so that allows us to bring more consumers to people who may not necessarily have been able to without that sort of help.